Today we're talking about how AI is going to shape healthcare. My name is Akina Ho. I'm the co-founder of AllStarsWomen DAO, which is a new type of organization. It's called Decentralized Autonomous Organization in the Web3 space. And Web3 does cover generative AI, and that's what we're going to talk about. We understand right now with the whole ChatGPT and OpenAI, a lot of companies suddenly comes out and said, hi, I'm using generative AI for my technology and my company. And right now we're going to talk about, is it really true? Has it been going on? Because we know that AI is not new to healthcare at all, right? But how are they using it now going forward? And with the whole generative AI concept, the general public is actually looking forward to healthcare being different, especially servicing them. And also if you're a doctor or nurse in the healthcare sector, how it service them from a perspective from servicing customers to understanding the latest healthcare trend, data, medical services and tools and things like that. So that's how it will start. But before we start, we're gonna have each of the panelists introduce themselves. So Pierre, since you're a guest, I'm sure most people know you already from the previous panel, but go ahead, please give a quick introduction about yourself.
Yeah, it's always a bit weird to be in a panel right after the others, but I'm so pleased that I could be in this panel because, as I explained before, I have been the founder of a nonprofit called Live with AI, which done a lot of work in really analyzing the impact that AI will have on our society and on our healthcare systems. And that's what I would really want to emphasize on this today. So I'm also the CEO of Ogilvy Health for Asia, but I think that, you know, I could see like all the work and the research we've conducted out of Singapore at the time is still very, very relevant. And when we basically worked on the impact that AI will have on our healthcare system, you know, we ended up with something that I continue to support, which is that I do hope that AI, it's a fantastic opportunity to bring back the care into healthcare.
Okay, great, thank you. So Frank?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Frank Poon from Insilico Medicines. What we are doing is to use the AI to help to facilitate the drug discovery process. Right now, we are the world's leading AI-driven drug discovery company, and we have several programs entered into the human clinical trials. So we have fully integrated AI platforms, so connected with the biology, chemistry, and together with the clinical trial as well, so that we believe this fully integrated AI system can really help us to facilitate the drug discovery process, which is a very inefficient right now. So this is what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Aldrin.
Hi everyone. This is Aldrin Yim. Basically, I was a scientist in training. I did my PhD at WashU School of Medicine, focusing on some of the most advanced genomics technique. And then during the process, we founded Codex Genetics. So in Codex, we have an idea on creating a deep patient's profile that involves like all kinds of clinical information, genomics information, real-world evidences, that by merging them all together, you create a very deep profiles in order to drive clinical decisions. So we are like a bioinformatics infrastructure building company. Thank you.
Okay, so we know, let's start in Hong Kong since we're in Hong Kong and this is StartmeupHK, one of StartmeupHK Festival's key conference. Hong Kong is not known for healthcare, right? And not known for tech, right? That's one thing that we need to change. And I know you've been in the Hong Kong startup ecosystem, especially in the healthcare sector. How do you see the Hong Kong startup in this field, thriving or surviving, and how do they survive?
That's actually a great question. I think Hong Kong has always had some really great biotech business around focusing in diagnosis, in patients management, patients monitoring process, as well as some kind of drug discovery as well. I think from that perspective, Hong Kong has a very unique advantage being in between China and the outer world, especially with the latest policies driven by the GBA regulations, on data healthcare policy, etc. So I think it's actually at a very good positions right now for Hong
So
Kong.
we have those startups in
We
Hong
have-
Kong,
Yes, we do. We do have all those startups.
but they're not known.
They are very well known, in fact.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So Frank, what do you think? Is that true or not true?
Yes, I agree with Aldrin. Yes, I think nowadays Hong Kong have many good startups in the biotech, healthcare as well. Because Hong Kong has many great research universities. They are world class, so we have many good research talents. But I think the challenges here is that our industry, I mean the biotech industry and also the therapeutics or even the healthcare industry is relatively slow compared to our research. Yes. So I think that's the area we need to improve. But
Is it marketing? Like not marketing yourself well enough to let you know that we had the best data for the world? Because I remember from CUHK, one of the key thing is the research data on pediatric, but that's not something known. Is that do you think marketing is an issue for Hong Kong company?
Well, I think, of course, marketing is very important, but it is not the only issue. I think the most important part is the translation. So, but I believe as nowadays there are many universities, they have their, the research translations departments, so and divisions. So I believe it will help. Yeah.
With generative AI, definitely, right?
Yeah.
That should not be a problem at all. Okay, Pierre, you're not from Hong Kong at all. From what you understand, so far today, I'm not sure you look into Hong Kong, healthcare company or not. What do you see the difference and how does Hong Kong match up to outside healthcare companies?
So I want to zoom back a bit and basically try to envision with you across, the fantastic diversity of countries in this region, the potential different scenario that we will get to basically develop AI health solution. So if you want to develop an AI startup or an AI-driven solution, whatever it is, in diagnostic, genomics, clinical trial, you basically need to have access to a huge amount of data. And then it's also very related to how much the citizen in the country will be using those data and pushed and motivated to basically control and manage their wellness or healthcare data, right? So if you look at really these two components, and you put one of them, on a vertical axis and another one on the horizontal axis, you could get some countries that will basically foster a lot the interoperability of these data, really implement the systems so that basically, data could be shared across the different stakeholders. And you can have countries that basically don't want to invest so much in the technology and in the infrastructure.
So you don't think Hong Kong is like that or Hong Kong is like that?
Let me get to that point.
Okay.
Okay. So one point is how much countries will basically underinvest or overinvest in the structure to basically help to foster data shareability in a secured way, considering all the sensitive data privacy that is related to health data. Now, on the other side, it's also how we motivate people, as I said, to basically use their health data and manage their wellness data, right? So you have countries that basically don't care so much about, they leave it to private providers to basically, motivate people to manage their wellness data. Could be like insurance company, for instance. And you have countries who basically want to be very much leading this, right? So, and you could see that basically that leads to 4 different scenarios. You could live in a country where you have a fantastic interoperable system and where people will be highly motivated by the government to manage their wellness data and healthcare data. And on the other side, you could live in countries where the government is going to rely on private, sectors to basically work on this system, this interoperability of the system, and even leave to some, startups or super giant app to basically motivate consumers about the way we manage our data. So, and I think it's super important to envision for each of the country where we sit to basically know who will basically thrive. Is it going to be a country where private players are going to really lead the change? Or is it a country where basically there will be a lot of support from the government? And it has a lot of impact on cybersecurity, on data threat,
Well, I think that all applies worldwide, right? It's all. I think most importantly is the culture of the country.
Yeah.
Like for the U.S., healthcare is more mature, meaning that the people who controls the data and healthcare business understand the power and they want to control centrally. In the country like Hong Kong, I think, correct me, I'm wrong, is that we're less in control of our data, and we're not technical savvy, thinking that we own the data. From the European countries or Western countries, they think that they own their own data, less likely to provide you the data. In Asia, I think most people want to give out their data. So data and data privacy is not such a big issue in Asia, in general census, than other Western countries. So I think that, from my data perspective, Hong Kong might have a more free will to obtain data. I mean, we can go back to that, right? Aldrin later talk about that.
Yes, I actually have a remark on that. So I think one thing that you guys just mentioned is about the data availability in general, but also one thing that to take note on in healthcare is about how the population size itself is also a big consideration, because Hong Kong, given the populations of 7 million people, is actually not the most appealing place for, let's say, clinical trials to happen in here. Let's say, for example, each year we have around 5,000 lung cancer patients. And if your clinical trials is targeting 1% of the entire patient cohort, meaning that you have only 50 patients across 10 different hospitals in 1 year that you can collect. And this number is actually not very appealing when comparing to the neighboring countries or regions, such as South Korea, Japan, Taipei, and some other places. So in this case, this actually gives us a slight disadvantage in terms of data collections from a very upstream before the data is even available or in a paper form, which is like many of our HA places taking place.
But what about concentration? Because I know that in all of Asia, at least, CUHA has a pediatric practice. They said they had the most concentrated clinical disease for pediatric in Hong Kong because they're known for their expertise. Other people from around the country come to Hong Kong for those, and they have those samples and diseases that are very unique. Would that impact the importance of how healthcare is in Hong Kong?
Yes, I definitely think so. But also at the same time, for pediatric diseases, some of those actually falls into the rare disease realms, right? So for rare disease realms, some of the definitions is like 1 in 3,000 people. Like if a disease happens in 1 in 3,000, that's like a rare disease. And coming from that, let's say for Huntington disease, ALS disease, we got only around 100 patients for each of them in Hong Kong.
And this AI or generative AI will change that and open up for other people to share data.
I think for AI, from my perspective, I think for the immediate applications, it would be more on an auxiliary role in assisting diagnosis, assisting the flow of data in healthcare settings rather than
especially for clinical trials.
Yes, especially in clinical trials.
Amazing, thank you. I'm going to go back to you, Pierre. I know you have a lot of things to share. What about diagnostic? For us, the most important thing is that we want to be told early as soon as possible that we have a certain type of disease. How do you see generative AI impact diagnostic in the whole healthcare system?
Well, I think it's just following on what you said. It's definitely going to continue to boom. And the good news is we need more of that and more diagnostic because, we have an aging population. We have a shortfall of doctors and practitioners that is expected, by 2030. So, I myself, I'm very excited to see that we will get more the support from the machine to do early diagnostic, right? And we should not be scared of, replacing the doctors. There is not enough doctors, right? Especially in this part of the world. We work with a really good company, Curated, that is doing early detection of breast cancer cells, right? And I can tell you that, these imagery AI solution, which is really based on CT scan imagery, really helps the healthcare workers and the radiologists to basically early detect some nodules, and some cells that definitely should be considered. That could save millions of women's life, which is fantastic, right?
Of course, thank you. Being a woman, so thank you in advance for all the women.
Well, I'm not doing anything, but I'm supporting them a lot because we work with Curative because we do believe in, how much they are improving women's, outcome. What I think is important is to consider that this kind of solution, in the diagnostic space need to be designed in partnership with the physician to really support not only the physician, but the entire suite and the entire chain of physicians and caregivers who have a role to play in this journey. So when you work in cancer, cancer is certainly the most complicated healthcare journey. You have the oncologist, the radiotherapist, the chemotherapist. So, and we need some solution to help those people also better work together along this journey, sharing information, sharing the diagnostic in advance, and pointing to the right practitioner.
Right, now that we're talking about diagnostic, now therapeutic. Frank, okay, your point of view on how AI affect therapeutic, which is really critical.
Yes, because we can see that AI has been very well and successfully adapted in the diagnostic, especially for the early diagnostics, because it is relatively easy to validate the algorithms, the model, because you can immediately talk to the doctors and then, yes, with the pathology results, okay. But anyway, the most important part is still the therapeutics, because we are talking about the treatment for the disease. So in terms of therapeutics, there are many different kinds of category. For example, take the medicine drugs, and also or more advanced gene therapy or the cell therapy. Those are relatively expensive. Okay, so what we are focusing on is on the drug development, especially the small molecules. So AI has been
In drug discovery, new drug discovery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we need for drug discovery. First of all, we need to find a target. What is the cause of the disease? Okay, we have a very good MOA. Okay, so that's
What's
what,
MOA?
the mechanism of actions
Okay,
here.
thank you.
Yeah, to cause the disease. Okay, so that's very important. But nowadays we have the LLM models, and as you may know, we are the leaders in the generative biologics and also the generative chemistry side.
So you're using LLM to assist with your new drug delivery?
Yeah, definitely, because early this year, so in March, we are the first one to integrate the chat functions into our AI biologic systems to analyze the disease genes and the relatively drug informations to do the target discovery. Yeah.
This is for within the organization, but not to consumer like us to chat with you, to ask for new drug discovery
Well, if they
information.
license the platform, definitely they can use it.
Okay, great.
Yes. So that's how we can use AI to identify the targets. And after that, and then once we have the targets, and the next step is we use the generative AI to generate a novel molecules to tackle that particular targets. So we have demonstrated that very successfully, and we set many industry records. For example, we can develop new small molecule potent drugs in less than 18 months to push it to the IND enabling stage. So this is a very helpful.
It's 18-month long?
Very short.
Okay,
yes.
what is the average before
The average
generative
is
AI?
about 4 to 5 years at least.
Wow.
Yep. So basically, we shorten the time significantly.
That's
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also in the last 3 years, we already using our pharma AI platform to push more than 30 internal programs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So Aldrin, when it comes to new drug, discovery, and we talked about data before. In general, maybe I'm just old school. I remember reading one of the biggest thing about new drug discovery is that they use unethical methods to create new drugs. With AI, I'm not sure will those methods goes away or would, or there is no impact in the way how new drugs are being discovered in terms of data privacy, using, real, human or animals to test or whatever it is. Does generative AI has any impact in that at all?
Well, that's a very interesting question about unethical approach in drug discoveries, etc. I think these days the FDA regulations or regulations across the world has been slowly changing. It's changing definitely, but slowly. The thing about, like, let's say the FDA latest regulations, they say they do not require any more animal experiments before going directly into human. So so I should say they requires no more non-human primates animals to go directly into human subjects for clinical trial testings. So that's definitely something that they're changing from an ethical perspective, trying to minimize harm, trying to minimize damage to not just human, but also to other animals at the same time.
Can generative AI simulate these, human or less human animal trait real beings?
Absolutely. So Frank, right beside me, is already working on a generative
Okay.
AI, trying to design on small molecule actions. But I think some of the latest tractions is like actually trying to combine both experimental approach as well as like Insilico approach, meaning that they actually, let's say, create a human organoid culture, like a 3D culture, let's say of a brain, or a 3D organoid culture of kidney cells. And then from that perspective, you add in the medications, add in the drugs, and do all kinds of screening from that perspective. And that data alone can actually help you to go straight to animal experiments and then straight to phase 1 clinical trials for safety and efficacy.
Is that why it's shortened the time frame because of that?
Yes, definitely. So it's not only shortening the time frame, because whenever you do animal experiments, it takes years. Because it takes years for mouse to grow. Let's say if you're targeting like neurodegenerative diseases, and your mouse will not exhibit symptoms until a year or two later, meaning that you have to, raise a mouse cage for a year or two in order to reach that amount of time. And at the same time, you have to spend a lot of money in order to bring the mouse to that period of time. So that's a lot of wasted effort. Indeed.
That's interesting. I never thought about that way. Pierre, how do you see generative AI impact, new drug discovery? Is there a difference between how Asia does it or European countries, or Western country does it?
Well, I think what matters is really to see where is the value. In any innovation, we discussed innovation before, the innovation, the most value comes at the intersection of things. So in drug discovery, I'm personally very interested in how you can start, finding new development, new drugs, new therapeutics at the intersection of things. And for that, it is at the intersection of data sets somehow, right? So, and there are a couple of...
Can I...
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, you mentioned twice about data intersection.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what does that mean in layman's term?
Well, I think that, some people are, using or leveraging or sitting on a huge sets of data, and some others, but they don't have access to another huge amount of data that they would eventually value. And this is why I come back to always this notion of data interoperability, and how can we get into some systems where we can tap into other sets of data to ensure that it's, done anonymously and in a very secured way, and at some point, what kind of data you need, and how can we extract this data from another third party so you can basically use these data.
Is healthcare companies open to that, or are they pretty, control freak and said, this is my data, don't play with it?
Well, I think it's, at the moment, we still don't have the proper decentralized technology and system allowing that data transferability. But it's on the way. I mean, one of the best countries who's doing that is Estonia, which I'm inviting you to look at how Estonia built that. And I do believe that, Hong Kong certainly and other countries will invest more in this technology, which will basically ease the access to data, and especially health data. And not only health, it's for any type of innovation. What is complicated in healthcare is the sensitivity of your data. And of course, the related privacy about your health data.
Well, talk about data and privacy. This is off the, the track, but I just want to talk about it. Do you think decentralization using blockchain and people owning their own data and having access to it all the time will speed the data sharing process a lot at all? And feel free to comment, any of you guys.
Go first. All right, sure. So, talking about data privacy, that's actually a very, very important topic. Blockchain is just one way to handle it. It's a data structure, technically, that is not mutatable in the process or is traceable upon mutations. But with that being said, I think majority of the countries, like many different countries have different regulations these days. They have like HIPAA compliance, they have like GPCR, all different types of regulations trying to regulate like how we should desensitize the human data or anonymize the human data in different perspectives.
Would that help moving to blockchain? Would that make it easier?
I think blockchain would make everything traceable in this perspective.
But not easier. Traceable,
not easier, but
okay.
I think generative AI itself can actually help along the process. So one thing about data privacy is one of the cutting edge approaches is doing privacy computing. So basically, you don't have to access the data. You just ask the server, ask the remote computer on what kind of information you're looking for, ask the questions, and then they give you an like anonymized total untraceable
Without
result
giving
from
out
that.
the source.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Frank, what do you think? I know you've been thinking while we're talking, so.
First of all, I'm not the compliance expert, okay? So I don't want to comment on the data privacy, okay? But in terms of the generative AI, I still think the most important part is still to generate something new, okay? So actually, our team is also working on generates the virtual data. So it means that based on their previous experimental data, historical data, that we can generate, let's say, data for the patients, the data for the control. I think it is very useful because those generated virtual data can help us to solve some, especially for rare disease, in some cases, the data set do not have enough control, enough disease for the comparisons. So generative AI can help us to generate those virtual data to help us to do the comparisons.
Okay. Are you afraid of, AI hallucination in the form of using such generative data? Pierre, what do you think?
Sorry, AI what?
Hallucination, meaning making up their own data and our ideas or concept. Would that be an issue
I think
in the healthcare sector?
Not at all. I think it's again. I think it's a question of what kind of generated data and how you use it, and how you access it again. So I think this is where we need to look at the regulation. Or I don't like to say the regulation, as we need to build the frameworks that basically empower people to deliver, to basically build ethical solution, right? And ethics is different from a country to another one, right? When we look at some certain generated data, we need to basically get some frameworks to ensure that these generated data, what is their value and how ethical are those new generated data and how might they be used?
Right. Amazing. Okay, so I'm sure there's some investor in the room, right? Who are investor here? Oh, good. Okay, so I'm sure there's one thing they're thinking with all these new stuff you guys are doing. Where should they put the money? What kind of company or what they should look at? So this is a great company, and put my $5 million of extra sitting around doing nothing in this company. I'm going to go down the road. Pick 3 things you said, that's what you would look at in the company before you said, I'm going to invest in this company. The forward thinking, the using AI, the reshaping what the healthcare system is. So I'm going to go with you first, Aldrin, then backward.
Okay, I'm actually thinking hard on this. I think the number one thing is that for the company that you are about to acquire or invest into, it has to have a very good source, clean source of data. So personally, from a healthcare perspective, I don't really like data imputations, especially from genomics perspective. So basically, right now, all kinds of regulations do not allow any kind of genomics imputations to exist in a clinical diagnosis settings, even though it's a very high probability chance of 99%.
Why is that? Quick answer.
Yeah, quick. It's just not doable.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very large, big.
And when he said they can do that, they're lying through the teeth.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So basically, you need to have like a very clean source of data, or like the investment would help them to breach into a very clean source of data. That is very important. Okay. Number 2 is like they have to have a very strong team of expertise, not just in AI, but also in healthcare settings. They have to understand very, very importantly, what are the disease that they're working on, whether it's a neuro disease, whether it's a cancer disease, do they have the expertise on that? That's actually very important. Because as a technician or like any technical enablers, if they have a hammer, they try to find a nail every single time. But the thing is that the disease is actually more complicated than a nail. So it has to be some kind of expertise. Right. And number 3, I'm still thinking.
Okay, no problem. We'll get Frank to do number 3.
Yes.
To add on.
I totally agree with Aldrin. Okay. I think for the investors, it's important to find a companies that has a solid validations from different aspects. For example, where the algorithms, where their studies and their products has a good receptions from the academia, from the industry, and where the company is industry leader, at least in their perspective, very a specific field. So that's a very important. And lastly, whether the company can generate the revenue, whether it is sustainable. So we are, is at least in the coming years.
Yeah, okay.
Three things. Business-wise, I do believe that we need more and more integrated care services, integrated care experience to really help the patient along the care journey. Point number two, absolutely aligned with you. There is a huge focus we need to have on how to collect clean data, get the proper data, and also everything that is going to help patient and people own their data using any kind of decentralized blockchain technology or other systems, because we will get to a stage where we will maybe one time monetize our data, but that's another ethical issue. Point number three, I think when you talk about AI and all these AI startups I'm meeting every day, they all come with like a great idea, and you just realize that they are using, they're underlying that the solution, they basically are using the ChatGPT API, which is great, which is going to open a lot of opportunities for founders to really like reinvent a certain customer experience. But from an investment point of view, I'm always recommending to say, what's the additional tech layer? What do you bring on top? What's the technology you develop on top of those existing LLM that you would be able to defend is yours? And how can you also differentiate, but also be independent from those players? Because to be honest, what is happening in the AI world today is exactly what happened with Google 20 years ago, with the hegemony of those tech giants, who are basically, serving a lot of our work and solution and development.
Right. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the panel. Thank you. So give a hand of applause to all the panelists.
Thank you.
Then thank you, Brinc, for putting this on. Thank you.